Welcome, my name is Kelly, and this is Fanimated, an animation fan podcast where we get a chance to geek out about our favorite animated media. And I am back again. I know I'm very sporadic in my uploads recently, so thank you for your patience, and thank you all for continuing to listen in the midst of this crazy time. As you may be able to hear, the audio is a bit different because I'm outside, just talking into my phone, because part of the reason I have not uploaded is I'm having technical difficulties. But you know what? Even with different audio, maybe not as clean audio, we can still talk about animation. We can still have a good time. So that's one reason, of course, that I haven't been able to upload, but also I have been incredibly busy, and so have many of my usual guests. But there's still plenty to talk about, plenty to do. So this is a quick Whatcha watchin' with just me and you, and we're here, and we're going to talk about some things that have come out and that I've really enjoyed. But man, it is a beautiful, beautiful spring day today where I'm at. I hope it is beautiful weather wherever you are at. But yeah, I'm just gonna go on this little walk here, and you're gonna join me on this little stroll, and we'll talk about a few things. First of all, Suzume, Makoto Shinkai's new film, came out in the U.S. Last month already. It's been that long, but oh my goodness, that was an absolute joy to go see in theaters, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that and my thoughts on that. It's definitely a film that I hope to do a full-length episode on, but I need to see it a few more times, I think, before I can actually delve deep into it, because I've only seen it the once. But yeah, it was really great to see in theaters, of course, as all Makoto Shinkai films are. Very gorgeous, absolutely beautiful, stunning visuals, truly immaculate. That for me is always the best part. And again, if you've listened to What You're Watching this before, I'm not going to go into spoiler territory on anything. But for me, I feel as many Makoto Shinkai films do, they focus on a romance. And this romance, I didn't feel like I had enough time to get to know these. I got to know the characters a little bit, but not maybe necessarily getting to know their relationship. Usually you have a lot of time to get to stumbling over my words. You have time in romantic films to have the characters fall in love with each other, but also the audience has to fall in love with the characters and fall in love with them falling in love, if that makes sense. The audience needs time to really, really want to support and root for this couple to get together, or whatever it is, right? And in my opinion, at least in my first viewing of it, I did not feel that. I mean, I don't think, for me at least, in my viewing and interpretation, it didn't feel like the romance was the heart of the story or the core of the story. I really think it was Suzume and her personal journey, and there just happened to be a romance on top of it. That's how I was viewing it and taking it in as. But I was kind of bummed because there are moments where it's clear the romance is a big part of this, and I just wasn't feeling that connection to the romantic storyline. And so that's a little nitpick about that, about my experience. And then the other thing, which I don't think, it's hard to gauge. I went to see the Japanese with English subtitles. And so the English dub might be a little different, of course, the translation. But this one, out of all the Makoto Shinkai films I've seen, is what I love about Makoto Shinkai is that he uses a lot of little supernatural elements in the midst of these stories, right? And it makes it into this fantastical adventure. It's very fun. This one felt like the supernatural or spiritual, folktale-esque kind of vibe was revved up about 8 notches. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think it was very fun and made it very Ghibli-esque. But for me, I think I had a harder time with this one just understanding what was going on. Because I'm chalking it up to mostly my lack of Japanese cultural knowledge, honestly. I feel like for a Japanese audience, some of those things might have been more intuitive as an audience, and for me at least it wasn't. And there were a few things where I was like, wait, what is happening now? What's going on? But not in the good questioning, right? I feel like an audience can be, it's a positive if you have things, mysteries that the audience is questioning or, wondering about, and you as a storyteller, you reveal those things as you go along, and that's what makes a story interesting. But for me, this sort of questioning was not the interesting mystery of the story. It was just, I'm really confused and I don't know what's going on. So those are 2 little negative things. But again, I need to see it again. On the positive side, besides the visuals, of course, there was a huge moment where I was tearing up and crying, and Suzume's journey is really special. She is a character. I love her. I love the journey she goes on. The humor as well in this one was just off the charts, and there are always humorous moments in Makoto Shinkai, but this one I feel like was even more ramped up. There are just so many funny moments, and you get to see a lot of different characters and a lot of different locations. It really feels like this grand epic journey, this epic adventure, and Suzume is a great heroine to be rooting for, so it definitely feels in that way a little different from some of the others. And I think that one thing I was disappointed by, I don't want to say disappointed, because I want to talk about the music briefly. The music is actually amazing. It still is so good. The choices are fantastic. But I guess maybe to my detriment, I listened to some of the music beforehand and was expecting some of it to come into play more. So that's just a small little thing, but the soundtrack is great. All in all, again, truly enjoyed it. It's not my favorite Makoto Shinkai film. I know my favorite usually goes in between, is it Your Name or is it Weathering with You? I feel like it's Weathering with You, but ask me on different days and I'm not sure which one's my favorite. But it's definitely not Suzume. I don't think Suzume hit me in the same way I know it hit other people, and other people connected with it a lot more. And for me, not necessarily, but still a beautiful film. If you have not seen it, I'm just being nitpicky because it is gorgeous and still one of the best animated films in recent memory. Like, it's gorgeous. So definitely go watch it. It's fantastic. And if you haven't seen any Makoto Shinkai films, get on that because they're all amazing. And then, of course, I need to talk briefly, or not so briefly, about The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. I've only had this video game for like a couple of days, and I'm just like falling in love with it just as much as I did with Breath of the Wild. And if you haven't like listened to our Breath of the Wild episode, please go back and do that. But I purchased Breath of the Wild a couple years later after I came out. I held off on buying a Switch for a long time. And then I finally bought the Switch just so I could play Breath of the Wild. And I like played it nonstop for like a month, basically. And just like everyone else on this on this planet, I know that's not the case, but it seems like everyone else on the planet loved Breath of the Wild so much. Fantastic. Oh my goodness. Really, like, automatically became my favorite video game of all time. And again, not going into spoilers for Tears of the Kingdom, but just some of my like brief initial reactions. I really haven't gotten that far into it. I've maybe had like 10 hours of gameplay so far, and in this type of game that's just like, you know, barely anything compared to how much is in this game. But it was a little strange at first because the mechanics are all, well, at least I shouldn't say mechanics, but it was just strange to go into a new game where I already knew which, like it is the Breath of the Wild, you know, Link. It is the Breath of the Wild, you know, I don't want to say even gameplay, but you know, it's like there are similar items, you know, like it's still the same world, and yet it's not the same world, if that makes sense. So for me, it was very strange to be like, oh yeah, I know how to maneuver this world. I know how to move Link around. I know how to, you know, at least you think you know, right? Like how to utilize what you have and how to interact with this world, right? And so that was a little strange, just to be like, oh yeah, I already feel super comfortable with, you know, what buttons to push, kind of, right? Except for this game, Tears of the Kingdom, takes Breath of the Wild and makes Breath of the Wild look like a preschooler, and Tears of the Kingdom is a graduate student. Like, that's what it feels like. Because the world it got so much bigger, and even the places where you've already been feel so different, and there's different things hiding in different places. But then they took this world and basically made it 3 times as big. It's insane to me. It's insane. And it's all gorgeous and beautiful. Like, one of my favorite things about Breath of the Wild, and now Tears of the Kingdom as well, is just like, you can be like climbing a mountain or running across the plains, and you're just like hit by this beautiful scenery, and it's gorgeous, and yeah, it's fantastic. So that's wonderful. But not only is the world bigger and you have even more things to discover and explore, but you are interacting within the world in a different way because you have a different tool set now. And like, not having the previous tool set is very different and takes some time to get used to. But that's kind of what's fun, is like, oh, I have these different, Link has these different powers, different abilities, and you get to learn a whole new way of interacting with this world. And I feel like I've barely scratched the surface. I can't wait to like go online and like look at what the weird things people are doing with this new like structure, these new mechanics, these new systems, because that's also one of my favorite things about Breath of the Wild and now Tears of the Kingdom is I love to see how other people interact, because it's so, individualized. Like you can do whatever you want. So how people are able to like manipulate the world and the mechanics is always super interesting to me. And I feel like I am not, I'm still training my brain to work with these new powers, new mechanics, and I'm still getting used to that, or trying to. And so that's a little bit of a challenge, but that's okay, because that's what's fun. And then the other thing about it that's like an immediate part that like sticks out to me as something that's so exciting. I mean, there are many things. Like, it's funny because, like, if you go back and listen to our Breath of the Wild episode, there are things that I'm like, that I say that I hope for in Tears of the Kingdom, and I feel like we got all of it. Like, I got everything I wanted out for Tears of the Kingdom to be. And one of those things, and again, without spoiling, is just that there feels like, at this point in time, like there's more of a story. Like, I feel like there are parts of it. It's open world, but there are still little secrets and hidden parts that you cannot necessarily get to. And I'm sure online people have already, figured out how to do everything. But like, I feel like that is helpful to have certain places that are blocked in some way, or at least harder to get to, because that way you can actually formulate a story and make the challenge, stay challenging, I guess. I forget the proper terminology for all that, but basically, like, I felt like Breath of the Wild, you get to a point where it's just like nothing can hurt you anymore. But I've yet to see how that actually pans out, because I'm not in the late stages of the game yet. And so everything's still hard because I have 3 hearts and I can't do anything, right? But even like my fighting style is forced to change because of the different weapon system, and I don't get unlimited bombs anymore. And that's usually how I would play Breath of the Wild, is just throw unlimited bombs at monsters, and I can't do that anymore. So yeah, and all that to go back to just saying that, like, yes, it feels like there's more of a story. And I feel more intrigued with the story. I feel like Breath of the Wild, it was just kind of like, you have to go find Ganon, and if you want to, you can look at the memories, but that's about it, and they're not really super connected. But this feels like, no, this feels much more like an actual story, and the new characters are really fun. Man, there's so much to talk about. I feel like I could talk for another like half an hour about Tears of the Kingdom. But another thing is just like, this is a Hyrule that has more people in it. Like, you aren't just in this desolate wasteland. Like, the kingdom of Hyrule is starting to be rebuilt, which is also fantastic, because then you get to interact with more NPCs, and there's more things going on in the overworld, and there's just like lots of fun, new, interesting side quests and things to do. And even just like new monsters and new things, and it's just so much more. There's so much more going on, and so I'm really excited to keep exploring it. And it's so hard because part of me like loves to see how other people are interacting with the world online, but also part of me wants to avoid online because I don't want any sort of spoilers. Even today I saw a little video clip of a monster I hadn't seen yet, and then I was disappointed because now I don't get that discovery of like fear of seeing this crazy new creature, right? So that's always a balance, especially with a game like this that's going to take me several months to play thoroughly, because I will take my time. I am not someone who wants to rush these kinds of games, so I want to take my time and explore everything and just take it on my own time. So yeah, but it's been a blast even just a few days in, and I was getting kind of nervous about like how excited I should be for this game, because I didn't want it to be a disappointment, and boy howdy, for me it has not been a disappointment at all. And if you have played Tears of the Kingdom, started playing it, please let me know what you think, because I'd love to know, I'd love to hear it. But yeah, it's a beautiful game. It's really fantastic, and worth the wait, honestly, worth the many years wait. So yeah, I'll be excited for a full-length episode on that someday as well. But I need to have time to play through the whole thing, and need to give my friends time to play through the whole thing too, so I can talk with them about it. So, but yeah, so those are the two most recent things, I guess, that have been on my mind in terms of animation and what I've been watching or playing. But yeah, I definitely haven't been watching too much else. Still behind on Vinland Saga, but slowly working through the new season, and that's really been the only like TV show I've watched all calendar year, and it's April already, so definitely just in a time where I'm like busy and prioritizing other things, but definitely still excited to be chatting with everyone about animation and releasing a few episodes when I can. So really appreciate the patience, and hopefully the audio isn't too bad this episode, and please let me know what you guys are watching. So without my computer in front of me, let me see if I can do the whole outro. Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/fanimated and vote for upcoming episodes and hear bonus episodes, and just be awesome and support the show, because without those supporters, I would not be able to, keep this going and paying for the just uploading fee, basically. So thank you to everyone who is a patron. You can leave us a rating and review and tell me what I should be watching next. I know a lot of you are looking for that Owl House episode. I guess that's the other thing I've watched since the last recording. The Owl House has ended, and it was spectacular and beautiful, and what a fantastic finale. And that is coming once I can fix my technical issues. My computer is 8 years old. Please have patience. And so yeah, leave us a rating and review. And the music is by Jamie Krause, and the art is done by myself, and you can find me on Instagram at CandorDraw. And thank you for listening. Thanks for hanging out with me on my little walk. And yeah, I'm gonna go play some Zelda. Okay, as always, stay tuned and stay animated. Tears of the Kingdom is definitely testing my great fear of heights.